All right, so I have 6 o'clock here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is our Aspen Dental Ask Me Anything. We have two docs with us here tonight. They will be joining us shortly. I believe they're still seeing patients. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Molly Lang. I work in academic and industry relations with Aspen Dental. So I work specifically with dental students. Um, right now I'm covering districts 4 and districts 5. For those of you that are involved in ASA, you know us based on districts. Tonight is a unique opportunity. You're going to have 1 hour to ask these dentists any questions that you have. Whether or not you're curious about Aspen Dental specifically, or you just want to get some more information and insight into what it's like to practice outside of dental school or as a new grad, just finishing dental school, you'll be able to ask those questions tonight. And you can do so anonymously. So there's a Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. And if you use that option, you can ask us your questions anonymously. I'll go through a list of questions that have been submitted, and we can kind of go through it that way. But your questions do help the flow of the conversation. And of course, this will be useful for you guys to be able to ask them questions related to this clinical side of practicing, maybe why they chose Aspen, and more specific things, whatever you're looking to know. So, as I said before, I work in academic and industry relations with Aspen Dental Management. So a little bit of history behind Aspen Dental and who we are. So we are a partner to those practices that you may have seen. Hi, Doc, how are you? We're gonna give Doc a minute to just settle in. So Aspen Dental branded practices, we provide the non-clinical support to over 800 branded practices nationwide. And hopefully by the end of the hour, you'll know a little bit more about what that looks like. But basically, we're providing support to these docs that helps them to run their practices. And it helps you as a new doc to come into a career where there's people around to support you. And I think that's the #1 benefit for students and new grads. Not only that mentorship, but that community behind Aspen Dental and the branded practices. So the practices are owned by a doc, and we're joined here tonight by one of the practice owners. So I'm going to go ahead and allow him to introduce himself. Thank you for joining us tonight, Dr. Elijah. It's great to have you. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your night. And I know the students here are excited to hear from you. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely. How's it going, everyone? My name is Vanya Lajic, and I'm currently a owner of 3 practices in the Charlotte Concord area.
Nice. How long have you been with us for?
So officially since 2017.
Very cool. So that's a little bit of time. Where did you start out in North Carolina, Doc?
No, so we're actually pretty new to North Carolina. We came pretty much last February of 2019, so not that long ago. I started out in pretty much Tampa Bay, Florida, and I practiced there until opening up the first office, or technically the 3rd office in North Carolina, which was in the Concord Mills area.
Great. So can you walk us through a little bit of that, Doc? You were a dental student at LECOM in 2017. You're getting ready to graduate. You're kind of weighing your options. Can you tell us a little bit of the story behind what made you choose Aspen and what that journey has looked like?
Yeah, of course. So pretty much I had pretty much an Aspen insider, I guess you can call it, where even before dental school, I knew a dentist that was pretty much opening up offices in the Tampa Bay area. And never did I really think I would work for him. I pretty much just kept that as a friendship. And I've seen him grow over the years from 2012 to 2013 to 2017. And he always talked about the great support that he had, no matter what kind of challenge that he had over the years. pretty much Aspen was there to kind of get him out of it as quick as possible and as clean as possible. When I was about to graduate, I had about 12 interviews lined up. And at the very end of it, I spoke to him about where should I go, what should I do. I had some great mentors, from a multi-unit Aspen owner to the past Florida president of the AGD, to a lot of different people that were, high and about in dentistry. And after speaking to a lot of them, I took the risk with Aspen Dental, where pretty much it made the most sense to me because I wanted to take that risk and see exactly where this crazy career can take us.
So what were some of the benefits that you saw in joining either Aspen Dental specifically or a DSO?
So specifically Aspen Dental, we had pretty much in my opinion, I saw a different experience that I had compared to some of my colleagues that went with different competitors that we won't name, but it seemed
We
like
all know.
mine was pretty much of, hey, we're gonna set you up this way, and then it's gonna be up to you how you really want to take advantage of that. Where I was really never really scarce of patience. When we wanted to learn something, we were given opportunity to. And the mentorship, I believe, was unparalleled because there was always someone to ask a question, and then there was always someone to show us how to do something if we were unsure of it.
Now, I got a question from someone in the group, and they want to know, what is a DSO compared to a private practice? Have you ever worked in private practice?
I have not.
You probably have classmates who have. Can you give any insight into maybe what your understanding from what the differences in a DSO to a private practice might look like for these guys?
Of course. Well, the most recent one with COVID, right? We were pretty much ahead of the ADA recommendations, where pretty much we were kind of left uncertain from March and April, where we didn't know how to do what. But the nice part with Aspen and ADMI, we were told recommendations, and as owners, it was our decision if we wanted to take them or not. And the cool part was every step that the ADA recommended, we were already ahead of them. And we didn't have to worry about what we're going to do or how we're going to do it. So I had a lot of privately managed docs literally calling me and asking me, hey, what are you guys doing over there? Should we do it? Should we not do it? How does that look? We had a whole legal team pretty much explain to us the pros and cons of every decision we made. And the cool part is we were ahead of it. And that helped out tremendously, especially as a practice owner. And then it helped out with my whole team and my employees on how to keep them actually happy and going and actually paid during this transition as well. So it was pretty awesome to see the whole company come together and prevail.
Mhm.
Now we're pretty much back to normal, and I'm opening up another office literally next week, and that's very
Wow. So that'll be your fourth office then, Doc?
no. So that would be actually the third one
The third.
that we've been pretty much training the two and in the two other offices. So
That's
it's
great.
pretty
That's really
wild.
great. And now, I mean, you're the practice owner of these offices. Would you say there's a difference in how you run your practice as opposed to the guy next door to you or down the street from you that's a privately owned practice?
Well, yes and no. I believe we all have the common goal of serving our community. The nice part is we do have, I believe, some ability to see more patients. And what I mean by that is I believe we are equipped for being able to see more new patients coming in, and where we pretty much also talk to these patients, do our welcome calls, and pretty much filter out patients to come see us, where we get to address it maybe even get the same day start and get them going and happier, where we can talk to them about third party financing and give them options that they might not have um, with one of my colleagues that are actually a neighbor of mine. So the
Oh,
cool part,
really?
yes. So the cool part is we get to actually, I believe, serve more of our community, where we can give them options of, hey, if you can't afford to do this right now, let's talk about how we can possibly get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the ideas for some dental schools and dental students is that sometimes DSOs operate like a mill where these people just are kind of coming through and the care isn't consistent. Would you say that that ended up being the case once you started practicing with Aspen, or how has that been for you?
No, because we have full power to manage exactly how many patients we do want to see, where it's actually manageable. So I know that there are certain offices that can handle more offices or more patients, and I know that there are certain offices that can handle less. So the cool part is, our new patient exams, especially during COVID, we've increased the time of the allotted new patient, where we're not jumping around and potentially spreading the virus.
Mhm.
When it comes down to it, I don't see that problem of feeling like it is a mill, or even confirming that it is one, because everything here is made for you to be set up for success.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think Dr. Clark is having an issue with logging on. Are you able to send him a new link?
Yes, I can have that set up for him. I know he just got out of seeing a patient,
Yes.
so that might be part of, but let me see if I can get him set up here. Um, Another question that I had from the group, though, as we're waiting on Dr. Clark to join us, um, going back to the conversation that we were just having around patients and having satisfied patients coming through the door, are you seeing your patients regularly? So are the same patients coming back to complete their treatment plans? And then are you seeing them again and maybe their spouses or family members?
Yes, yes, definitely. So, especially when we're coming into a brand new community, um, people don't know what Aspen Dental is. Especially here in North Carolina, people did not know what we were a year ago. So the cool part is, we're building that reputation, and now we even have a metric that tells us of how many of our new patients complete their treatment within 60 days. And when it comes down to the offices right now, the two that are running, they're roughly around 92%. And that is, I think, very, very awesome, because we always like to see where we're at and what we're missing.
Mhm.
So when it comes down to the other 80%, we want to find out what happened. Why didn't they come back for treatment? Was it financial? Was it the crisis? You know, what went wrong? And then we will reach out to them and ask them what's going on. But yes, there's nothing better than having, a parent come in. Next thing you know, you have their kids come in, their other half come in, then other family members. So that's always a very, very cool feeling.
Yeah, I bet that has to be. Um, and now just going backwards a little bit to our conversation regarding, your start with Aspen. So you started with Aspen as an associate in a practice, and then moved into a lead dentist position. And then from there, you're now a practice owner. Can you kind of talk us through what that sequence of events looked like, the length of time, how you grew to become an owner?
Yes, of course. So I actually pretty much cheated when it came down to now that's going to be joining us can talk
Oh,
about the
I think you
association.
just the internet timed out. Can you start that again?
Yeah, of course. I kind of cheated. I was never an associate. I went straight into that lead role. And the main reason why was pretty much when I realized that I wanted to sign up with the multi-unit owner, I started spending my Christmas break with him, where I worked for him as a dental assistant. And I pretty much just followed him around for those 2 weeks and learned from how he manages it, how he does things, and what works and what doesn't. And then after pretty much graduation, there was about a month and a half that I had to wait for my license to actually come on in. And I spent the next 6 weeks with him on essentially being his personal assistant and just learning how to do what. I was his assistant for all the surgeries, all the big cases, root canals, crowns, aesthetic cases. And when the time came, I pretty much had the opportunity to take over a struggling office. And at that time, there was a struggling office where the doctor was on her way out. There was no associate. It was a single doctor office, single hygiene office, and he just needed someone to come in there and revive the pretty much the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm big on you're the keeper of your own culture. So when we went and he introduced me to everybody, he pretty much told me, "Hey, take over." And since that moment, we flipped office around, flipped some key players around, and the cool part is he trusted me to make these decisions. And from there on, it was just pretty much a race to the top, where it was one of the most struggling offices in the state of Florida to literally top five month in, month out. So
Wow. Wow.
cool.
So that is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool experience to be a part of. I am getting some more questions here. One of the questions I have is, not for those students who don't have a previous relationship with an Aspen Dental dentist, what would be the first steps in the process to getting into a practice? I think they mean getting into a practice. I don't know if they mean ownership, but in order to be an owner, you do have to practice with us first. But just going back to the process that it would take. So for you, what are you looking for when you hire a new doc in your practice?
So I would say let me answer the first question. To get into a practice, I would say if you are interested in Aspen Dental and you know where you want to live after graduation, whether it's back home, Charlotte, or Ohio, I would call that office, or we know some recruiters that can put you in touch with the practice owners where we can even set up shadow dates during winter break. And at the end of the day, I always tell the docs, I'm like, hey, spend a day with me. I want you to see what an everyday type of day, your typical day looks like. And if it's something that you really like, let's talk about what the future looks like. If it's something that's not for you, let's talk about why it isn't. And then maybe I can even refer you to someone else when it comes down to getting you the right fit. But it definitely has to happen where you kind of see the environment, you see, is this something that you really want to do? And if so, let's pursue it. Um, and then the question of how do you get into ownership?
Well, I don't know if that was their question. I couldn't quite read whether that was what they were asking or if it was the first step in the process to becoming an associate. Um, but yes, absolutely. To kind of follow up on what you were saying, if you're interested in Aspen, this is your opportunity to reach out to us and let us know. And I can help facilitate that relationship with one of our doctors and hopefully sets people up with shadow days, because as you said, I think that is crucial in determining, is Aspen Dental the right fit for you, and finding out for yourself.
And then I believe the question was, what do I look for?
What do you, now you're a practice owner, you've hired new graduates. What are
Yeah.
you looking for when you're interviewing a new graduate?
So pretty much what I always like to tell new grads is I can teach you dentistry. That I feel like that's the easy part. I feel like getting the right attitude, the right mentality, the right drive, being ethical, benevolence, you want to do good, getting the right people in the right places. I think the harder part is finding the right fit for the particular office. But as far as the dentistry goes, I have 6 doctors right now. One has 8 years of experience, and then I have 2 that are brand new grads. And when it comes down to it, I tell the new guys, I'm like, I don't care if you have 20 years of experience or no experience. It's all about your mindset, how you come at it.
Mhm.
Because we get better at fillings. We do get better at root canals. We get more comfortable with crowns. Surgery becomes a piece of cake. It's just coming down to, actually repetition, getting more comfortable with it, confidence, but that everyday drive. And can you lead a team? Can the team trust you? Do patients trust you? Can you actually have that conversation, the tough conversations with patients of, hey, this looks like it's going to be a very tough surgical case. Let's talk about it. Or, hey, um, let's talk about these different options of doing these root canals, doing these crowns, and what the future looks like. Seeing a big picture, the comprehensive care. So I think finding the person that's actually very level-headed and that wants to accomplish all that it's the harder part over the actual experience itself. And that's
Mhm.
pretty much where I stand, what I look for in a doc.
Now, are you mentoring your docs that are coming into your practices?
100%. So Dr. Clark has been with me since July, and now he is going to pretty much essentially move into that leadership role of taking over the Concord office. And then I have Dr. Shrestha, who is my new associate for Northlake office, and she'll actually have my one-on-one, um, pretty much guidance with her for the next roughly 6 months. Prior to that, I have a different doctor that came from Howard University, and she spent about a year with me before I put her into a different office with my lead doctor. So when it comes down to it, I always want to make sure that all the doctors, all the hygienists, anyone clinical is on the same page, that we use the same verbiage, that we make sure that everybody's set up for success. If someone's struggling, I don't want them to continue to struggle. I want them being with me side by side. My whole rule is if you're not truly comfortable with something, let's do it together. You know, you're gonna watch me do it 3 times. I'm gonna assist you doing it before you ever do it alone. And then I'll be right outside the door, kind of waiting for you to make sure you're okay or you're not okay before I ever leave that practice. So making sure that everybody is comfortable with it.
And what about specialists? Do you have any specialists in your practices?
Yes, so I have an oral surgeon that comes through the practices, and I'm currently working on an endodontist.
So you're working on hiring an endo.
Yes.
That's
So we
great.
do surgery, we still do endo, but at the end of the day, I want to have specialists that come through the door that can handle the cases that we might not want to, right? So when we do, for example, like the oral surgeon, they'll do the sinus lifts, they'll do the bridge splits, the bone augmentation, all the fancy stuff that at the end of the day, that's something I think they should do. And then the same thing with, I'm speaking for an endodontist now that can go between offices, that can do the endomolars a lot quicker than we can do.
Mhm.
Um, some interiors, the premolars. But once those roots get quite fancy with us, we tend to refer them out.
So what types of cases or what types of dentistry are new associates for you seeing in their first 6 months in the practice?
So it all depends on an associate. I have some associates that need more time because their schools weren't as clinically heavy, like ECU. I know they're clinically heavy, but I have some new docs that come out of school and they need more time to do their fillings, to do crown preps, to do root canals, to do extractions. So, we take it easier and get them comfortable before we just tell them, hey, you have to do this or this or this. And then I have some docs that come out and they're just ready. They hit the ground running and they're just like, all right, doc, what are we doing next? And they're excited. And I'm not going to hold them back. We're going to make sure that they are ready for it. But I have some docs that are ready and 3 months in, they're doing full mouth extraction cases. They're working on dentures. They're doing aesthetic cases, they're doing veneers, you know, so it's very, very exciting to see each doctor develop. The most important thing to me is that they are developing.
Mhm. And what would once they're up and running, let's say you have a doc that's kind of in between that, where they gain their confidence within those first 6 months, what would their schedule start to look like as an associate?
So pretty much the associate's job is, hey, let's again earn and develop that comfortability. So I'm not going to have the associate run a whole column, do all the new patients, do all the overflow, and figure it all out as they go. No, so basically we want to get you comfortable with this is your column of production. How long do you need to set up? Before a doc ever starts, we do a pretty much we have a whole notebook for new doctors. And there they have the clinical preferences where we go over every pretty much procedure and we talk about how long should it take them, right? And then we adjust it as we go. So a new doc coming out, we want to go ahead and start, hey, let's start on fillings. Let's get comfortable with them. Let's start on one filling. Let's start on occlusal. Let's start on a DO. Let's start on MOD, right? And then what we want to do is we take x-rays afterwards. I like to see exactly that we're doing quality over quantity, right? Because if I see that this margin doesn't look good or the contour of the tooth isn't correct, let's redo it. Let's talk about how we're going to do it better, and let's talk about how we're going to do the right thing for the patient. So once we actually see that we're comfortable with that, let's start with some interior fillings. Get comfortable with that. Let's then start with some crowns, and then let's do it together. You know, again, the rule of three is, hey, watch me do this. Come assist me doing this. Okay, now it's your turn. I'm gonna assist you. I'm not even gonna throw a dental assistant in there. I want to see it. You know, and then I want to guide you. You know, with surgery, sometimes the new docs come out and they haven't had that much clinical experience where they don't know how much pressure to apply when they're luxating or elevating. And then I'll literally grab their hand and I'll do it with them, right? Because how else are you gonna know? So it's one of those things where again, the new associates, we take little by little, and everybody has their own developmental path. While once you actually become comfortable, that's when I'm like, all right, let's throw some more responsibility on here. Let's start seeing some overflow. Let's start doing some wax bites, some wax try-ins. Let's start seeing some adjustments. Let's talk about this Invisalign, right? We're big on that. So let's talk about these 3D scans. Let's talk about how we're going to go ahead and improve in different aspects of the field. And then once we get comfortable with that, let's start talking about these new patients, right? How are we going to continue to grow this office? And then get comfortable with these new patient exams. Because at the end of the day, if we can't really communicate with the patients, it's going to be a lot harder to be a successful dentist.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give an update, we are working on getting Dr. Clark on here, so he should be here shortly. And he'll be able to help answer some of these associate questions. But I think it's important for these guys to understand that as a practice owner, what are you expecting from your associates, and hear from you, you know, what is that path going to look like for me as the associate? So just to kind of fall in line with that conversation, are these associates, once they are up and running and you feel they're confident and they're kind of seeing patients more on their own, do they then have a requirement or a quota that they have to meet?
No. So it's one of those things where the associate and the lead dentist, they work together. You know, it's a completely symbiotic team. So when you have two really good doctors that work together, when one, because it's dentistry, right? And every patient is different, every procedure is different. The lead doctor can fall behind in their procedure, whatever it may be, and then the associate is there to back them up, and vice versa, right? In the beginning, it's always going to be, hey, the lead doctor is backing up the associate, but there will be times where the associate could step up to the plate and be like, hey, doc, I got you. I'm going to go do this new patient exam. Hey, doc, I got you. I'm going to go do this. Or, hey, doc, you know what? While you're finishing there, let me go numb up your next patient, right? So you work as a team. And the nice part is, like some of my colleagues tell me about, other locations and their experiences is you're never competing against each other. So you want to be able to do as much as you possibly can together, and you want to help each other out. And suddenly, the whole office is a much happier place because there isn't that awkwardness of two docs competing on who's going to get this big surgery or who's going to go ahead and get this crown case. So it's a very symbiotic relationship when it comes down to it.
So then would the associate be working closely with the MCD or with you? And MCD is the lead dentist. That's our acronym for a lead dentist.
So in the beginning, I always like to work with the new docs. Again, making sure that they're set up for success. And unless there is a certain scenario where, highly unlikely, but if they live across town, they live about an hour away, and that new office is right there, then I would never put that associate with someone that I don't trust. So it'd be a very veteran lead doctor that could actually groom and guide you to success.
Mm-hmm.
But that hasn't been quite the case yet, even during these crazy times of COVID. But if that does happen, it will be a scenario where every doctor is set up for success, or else I'm not benefiting either, right? So I need to make sure that all the doctors are on the same page of clinical skills, verbiage, comfortability, and actually being able to be a leader in office, whether you're an associate or the MCD.
That's great. How many new patients are typically coming through your practices right now?
So we have a very, very good problem. We have a lot. The state of North Carolina is in the top of the new patient margins. My Concord Mills office, on average, sees about 9 new patients a day.
9, yeah, that is high.
And then my Concord office is seeing 13.
Wow. Okay, that's even higher.
Yeah. So
Those are big numbers.
Yes, I believe it's number 2 right now in the nation out of 820 something locations.
Wow.
So it's a very, very good problem to have.
And of course, you have a team there to support you to kind of help with everything that is involved in that. So scheduling those patients, making sure that they're all taken care of, making sure that you're advertising to other new patients to help them get through the door. All of those things help you to manage the practice, setting up their insurance, things like that.
Yes, and that's what really makes it so easy to come in and do your daily job, just because you're not worried about choosing how and where to advertise. You're not worried about doing new patient welcome calls because you have a team doing it. And no matter what challenge is thrown at you, you have someone to help you out. One thing that came to mind is when I was in Florida, we actually were in a situation where in 2017, a hurricane hit. And pretty much the majority of the state evacuated. And we came back to the office after the hurricane passed, and half the office was literally flooded. And we're just like, what do we do about it, right? So literally, it was just a couple phone calls, and within the next 3 days, we're back and running. They sent everybody out. They fixed the electrical problems. They cleaned up the flood. They replaced whatever units and materials that needed to be replaced, and we were back at it. And it was super cool because I didn't have to feel that stress. And at the time, I was that lead doctor where everything pretty much I felt like relied on me, but it was awesome because everything was fully taken care of. And within literally that Thursday, we were back and it was game on. And it was really, really, really cool just to see how everything came together, how everything was addressed, and we were just taken care of.
Yeah, we actually had a similar case here in Chattanooga where there was flooding in one of the practices, and the practice owner actually was married to a private practice owner, and he had to kind of take care of everything in his practice, whereas she, was partnered with Aspen. So her regional manager and her director helped to take care of everything, so she didn't have to worry about it. So let's give a big warm welcome to Dr. Chris Clark, who's just joined us. Dr. Clark.
We made it, slow but sure.
I know you're seeing a patient, so hopefully everything went okay and we've got you in here now. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. This is a group of ECU students. We've got a mix of a few different years, but they are here tonight to hear from you about your experience working with Aspen.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, first of all, go Heels because, but no, I graduated from Chapel Hill this year in the middle of the pandemic. So that was an experience, and then started working at Aspen. I was slated to started working in May, but because of or early June, because of everything got pushed back a little bit, ended up starting in late June and have been working ever since. Also got married during that time because COVID. So Dr. Elagic was nice enough to allow me to go on a honeymoon and do all those fun things, while after starting work. So that was wonderful. Big shout out to him for that. My wife is still appreciative. But no, work has been great. So what we were taught in school was that, Aspen, Heartland, all these big companies, we were taught that they tell you what to do. They tell you how to treatment plan. They tell you how to, wipe your nose, X, Y, and Z. So what I've found is it couldn't be farther from the truth. What we've got here is the support to allow you to literally do your job. So I go in, just finished completely treatment planning. Let's see how many new patients we had this afternoon. So we had 6 new patients this afternoon, which we saw, which was awesome. So that's why we just finished up the last one. But I go in and I, do what I've been taught, do what I've been told by my teachers and my professors. So having that ability to freely treatment plan and do what is truly best for the patient has been awesome. That was my biggest concern coming into it, and it was very quickly put to rest. So that's been wonderful. So
What
far
made
with
you,
that. Oh, go ahead.
what made you choose Aspen over your other options, if that was a concern initially?
So I actually had a mentor reach out to me. He was worked in dentistry for 15 years, and I had 2 private practice offers, one in South Park and one in Matthews, North Carolina, 2 great areas, great practices. But he told me, he was like, Chris, look, like the future of dentistry is going this way. And the pandemic kind of really showed that, how, Aspen was able to bounce back so much quicker than the private practices. So the reason I chose it was really his mentoring. And then for me, honestly, my wife that we were talking about, she wanted to be in this neck of the woods, and my house is 9 minutes from my office.
Ooh,
So
nice.
I love that commute.
Can you talk with these guys a little bit about the transition out of dental school and into practicing? I know Dr. Alajek kind of covered it a little bit from his perspective as the mentor, but from your perspective as the mentee and coming out and practicing, what did that look like?
So he threw me in the first day. I had 3 root canals. No. So it was very relaxed. I felt very comfortable by the time I actually started working. So the first few weeks, I literally just was attached to his hip, and he just walked me through every little thing. Because honestly, in March, we had the pandemic, and I had spring break and then never went back to school. So I had not picked up a handpiece since March, hadn't done a crown prep, hadn't done a filling, nothing. So he slowly worked me back into being comfortable, diagnosis and treatment planning, having those conversations with patients before I ever put a handpiece in my hands. So, and then when I did, he was right there with me over my shoulder, lurking, just watching me, making sure that I was comfortable and I was,
It sounds comfortable the way you put it.
That's my bad.
No,
had you guys
giving me
met
that support.
Prior to your interview, Dr. Clark? Had you shadowed or anything in an Aspen dental practice?
I did. So I didn't have the opportunity to shadow other Aspen practices, but I did get to shadow Dr. Elagic's office. So I got to hang out with him twice before I, got the official offer and everything else. But it was a great experience. And obviously, every Aspen dental office is different. So not no two offices are exactly the same, but you do have that same support system. So for the doctors who run it, you have to work. It's going to be, you're going to get out what you put in. So that's something that I've loved seeing from Dr. Elijah, because this man works.
And what about your schedule? How does your schedule look? What are your hours like?
Absolutely. So right now, I love my Monday schedule. So my Monday schedule, I get to come in late. I get to come in at 9 o'clock and leave, but that is our late day. So we come in at 9, we leave at 7. Tuesday through Thursday, we work 8 to 6. And then Fridays, we work 8 to 1.
Do you work any Saturdays?
So right now I'm going to be working one Saturday a month, because there are those patients who just, blue collar workers who just can't come in during the weekdays. So we make ourselves available one Saturday a month so that we can take care of those patients.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any aspect of this that has been frustrating for you, like coming on to Aspen, or you can be honest with these guys?
Oh, absolutely. So probably the frustrating part, leading a team. That is the frustrating part, but that's anywhere. So it's not necessarily with Aspen or either way. It's just, managing people, because you can, expect certain things and make yourself crystal clear, and, things happen. So, but it's following up on that and knowing how to have those conversations afterwards to say, hey, this is what I expected. This is what happened. This is how we can improve. But that's going to be critical in managing any team.
And so do you feel like you've grown in just what you've been with us for 2.5 months now? Do you feel like you've grown, and can you kind of talk about that clinically, what you're doing and what you're seeing compared to a few months ago?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. A few months ago, like I said, Dr. A was kind of holding my hand and helping me through everything, making me comfortable again. And, now I'm off to the races. I'm doing all the things I'm comfortable with. I was looking at my schedule just to kind of go through what I had today. So we had the root canal, crown prep, and 2 fillings on the first patient. Then we had multiple extractions, lots of hygiene. So I think it was 12 new patients total today. So jumping in and out, going to new patient exams, that was probably the biggest challenge for me. One of the bigger challenges was figuring out when to hop to those new exams or those new patient exams in between those productions. But yeah, no, we're running full speed. So we're doing root canals, we're doing crowns, we're doing extractions, we're doing extract and insert with immediate partial dentures, full dentures, all those things, which I love. So that was one of the things I actually enjoyed doing in dental school was the dentures, so that I came to the right place. we do plenty of those.
That's good. And then your treatment plans, do you have autonomy over your treatment plans and your patients and what you're doing?
For sure. And that was my biggest concern, like I was saying, was that I was afraid that my treatment plans would somehow be influenced by Aspen. I didn't know who was going to be influencing them, but I thought I was going to be kind of like led to like over treatment plan for patients. That was one of my biggest fears, but no, not at all. I've never felt any type of way, no push or nudge or, wink, wink, like you should do this, you'd make more money. No, it's all about doing what's right for the patient.
That's great. That's really good. Sounds like you're having a really good experience.
I am. I'm working hard. Good experience.
And maybe both you guys can answer this. Can you talk a little bit about the culture, about Aspen, about Dr. Elijah? You've been with Aspen for quite a while now, and you've built your own team. Can you talk about the culture within your practices?
Yeah, work hard, play hard. It is my motto. I feel like it's the motto of Aspen as well. Mine is this year, we always do a big leadership retreat where, the leaders of the company get together, and it is a big party. And that to me is just awesome, where we can get together and actually just unwind and relax. So I had the same culture with my doctors, with my teams. Prior to COVID, we would always do outings. Let's go celebrate the next big win. Let's set a goal and celebrate afterwards. Dr. Clark can tell you, I like to randomly on after our work day, like, hey guys, let's just go to the brewery, have a few beers, have some food, and
Big fan.
so when it comes down to it, it's just, I believe if I can get my doctors to do that, and they can bring that to a doctor. Looks like you have some visitors right behind you.
Yeah.
We got the full squad.
Oh, sorry.
If I can get that docs, and then they can bring it to their offices, kind of like Dr. Clark is doing right now. I feel like it's a recipe to success.
Dr. Clark, how would you describe the atmosphere in your office amongst you and your colleagues, coworkers?
Oh, definitely fun. Like, we have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot, we joke a lot, but while we're getting the work done, obviously. So we're big about food here. So we definitely try to make sure everybody's well fed. And, so we've got Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, and Five Guys within about 50 yards of us either direction. So that's dangerous, along with
Oh, you
Panera.
guys are eating
So
well then.
we are eating very well. I think I've gained 6 pounds in 2 months. No, not even month and a half. That's not good. I'm about a pound a week at this point. But no, we have fun. We laugh a lot. Like Dr. A said, with this pandemic, we haven't been able to do it like we'd like to, as far as getting out and really doing things. But we're looking forward to when we can, go out and do more things with our team.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And for these guys on here that are kind of weighing their options and trying to decide what they want to do after they graduate, is there any advice you might offer to them so that they can help kind of understand what would help along the way, along that process?
I would ask a lot of questions. So with any position that you're looking at, so say you have a private practice office, and say you have an Aspen office that you're looking at, ask questions as far as, how many patients do you see a day? How many new patients do you see a day? What type of procedures do you do? What would you expect me to do? What does a typical day look like? All those, just, it seems like normal questions, but just so you fully understand what you're getting into, and what to expect and what they expect of you.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Clark. Dr. Elijah, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I always like to tell the interviewees or anyone who really, especially for the D1s, D2s, D3s. I don't know if the D4s right now are hands-on due to COVID, but when that happens again, and when you're available to go back into clinic and actually get your hands wet, do everything you possibly can.
100%.
Get yourself into situations where you're unsure of if you're going to go ahead and finish or not. Why? Because the time to learn. This is the time to take chances, and this is the time to really maximize what you may or may not like in the future. I was the annoying one in class where I stayed after in clinic, and I pretty much did not leave because I saw more opportunities to get these hands going. And then that was my excuse of, hey guys, I'm here right now. I will never ever have this opportunity again. I want to see as much as humanly possible. And I believe that's what really made me stand out when I graduated, because I did not stop, and I pretty much tried almost anything I possibly could while I was in that clinic.
Yeah, that's great advice. Was there something you wanted to add to that, Dr. Clark?
Couldn't agree more, honestly. Just because you get into a clinic and you're like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, maybe I'll just like push it off. Like, I don't know. But no, 100% go for it. Please get that experience, because you'll appreciate it. You'll be glad that you did. The more you do, the better you'll be.
Are you doing any Invisalign right now, Dr. Clark?
Absolutely. I've got hopefully going to be doing Invisalign on myself starting tomorrow, actually. So waited for dental school to be done and then get the employee discount with Invisalign. So
you've only been with Dr. Elijah now for 2.5 months. So when did you do your Invisalign training?
So I actually did a course through Carolina when we
Mhm.
graduated. So did
Okay.
it through Carolina, and then I'm doing a follow-up course through Aspen, which is awesome.
And how would that typically look, Doc, for your associates or your MCDs coming into the practice? Would that be the first 6 months they might receive that type of training?
I believe, I don't know if it was my internet or if it was everybody's, but I kind of lost you after Dr. Clark said that he would be starting his Invisalign.
So sorry about that. So for your docs coming into your practice who haven't done Invisalign training, would they typically get that training or receive it within the first couple of months?
Yes, so my goal is by the end of October to have all my new doctors trained Invisalign. And the main reason why is why not, right? Especially nowadays, it used to be a lot harder to get them signed up because we used to have to send you to Chicago and do this and this and this. But now, due to COVID, it's virtual.
Mhm.
So I have a virtual course, and it's not 100 people. They keep it at 25 docs a course, and they do it on a Friday and Saturday where they do it with the iTero, and they make sure that they go through the course from how to properly scan to what the scanning can do when using the 3D, and not only for Invisalign but for your crowns, for your partials as well, and for your lingual bars, and pretty much all the cool stuff where we are actually using it to make surgical sense nowadays too. So they go through all of that, and then you take your ortho 101 course. And then when you master that, something that Dr. Clark is unaware of, there's a master Invisalign course that I'm going to sign him up for after he takes and that one's really really cool. I took that one about 2 years ago, and it just gets you going with this. So you're super comfortable with a lot of not just the terminology, but your capabilities of what you can do with Invisalign. Since we started Invisalign in 2018, I've done over 100 cases, and it's been really really cool because I don't know about this. Even you can be the most confident person out there, and you're like, this is kind of crazy. And then once you see all the movements and you get more comfortable with what you're capable of, and it's pretty amazing of what kind of changes you can make. I've had turnarounds with patients that do it in 6 months, and then I've had patients that do it in a year and a half. But it's pretty cool when it comes to you can make them Invisalign. So yes, the goal is for every doc to have that, in my personal opinion, within the first 3 months of starting.
Yeah, that's great. Every practice owner does it a little differently. So it's always nice to hear from each of them how they kind of manage that within their practice. What about implants? Are you placing implants
I am.
in all of your practices, or are you the only one that's doing implants?
So myself and an oral surgeon.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. So the oral surgeon travels. I travel, and pretty much the docs and are pretty much all aligned on the same page. Whenever there's any hesitation, I have the docs send me a pano, send me the PA, send me the FMX, um, show me the scan, make sure that we have enough space and everything. And we even have CBCTs now where we are making these surgical guides as well. So we make it super easy, and then they pretty much set up a date. For example, in the Concord Mills office, I'm going there next Friday for a extract on number 19, and then the following Tuesday we're doing 4 extraction of the lower teeth and 4 lower implants for an implant denture.
Wow, that's exciting. So you are moving around between your different offices. And if Dr. Clark, for example, has a question or something that he doesn't really know, he's never seen before, how does he still reach out to you and get that support that he needs?
Oh, he's on the favorites list. Speed dial.
Speed dial?
You better believe it.
So prime example is, I think 2 hours ago, Doc.
Yep.
We had a question on a number 2 and some specifics to it, and Doc called me. I pick up. I make it. I know what it's like to feel pretty much alone in the office. And there's been times where I haven't had the answer right away, and it really bugs me out. So my promise to my doc says, hey guys, I got this phone literally in my pocket. If I'm not with you, it is on loud. And when you call, I will pick up. If I don't pick up right away, I will call you literally within the next 15 to 30 minutes, and we will discuss whatever it is. They know if they call me twice that I will 100% leave whatever I'm doing and get out and call them back. And we discuss it. He even sent me some pictures of some x-rays, and then we pretty much got the diagnosis and answer.
That's great. I was gonna ask if, like, do you guys ever FaceTime so that you can kind of show him what exactly is going on, but you're using pictures as your method to get the visual?
He tries not to look at me if he doesn't have to.
Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I think it's always very informative for the students to hear from the docs, to have someone who just graduated come on and talk a little bit about what your experience has been, and Dr. Elijah as an owner to understand what it is that you look for in a new dentist and how you run your practice is always very helpful for these guys. So we really do appreciate it. You've answered all of our questions tonight. Are there any last thoughts you want to leave these guys with before signing off?
Well,
if they're interested in shadowing, is that an option? Right? I don't know with coronavirus if it's an option, but
if you want, go ahead and provide them my email.
Okay.
Ciao. And we can definitely set up a shadow where you guys can come on in, see what it's all about, and see if you're interested. I'm very, very open to that, because at the end of the day, it's all about learning. It's all about making sure and making the right decision, because at the end of the day, it is not a light decision to make when you're graduating to take on that job. Whether it's your first job or your last job, the goal is to give you that great experience and ideally make it your first and last job, right? So we want to make that career out of this, and we want to help you make the decisions. So 100% shadowing is promoted even during these crazy times. Hopefully, not that it does get easier for everybody, and that we can get back to the new normal. But in the meantime, my take-home message is get uncomfortable, do as much as you possibly can right now while you are in it, and ask those questions like Dr. Clark said, because a lot of it doesn't add up, and a lot of it can be scary. So make sure that you leave comfortable with graduation, with picking that right decision, making that right move, and having the right mentors in your life.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Also, go Heels. That's all I got.
Well, again, thank you guys for joining us. And for those of you that attended this Ask Me Anything session, I hope you guys got a lot out of it. As you heard Doc mention, he will allow us to pass along his email so you can reach out to him. So I will be following up with everybody with an email to just provide some more information for you. Thanks again for joining. I hope we answered all of your questions, and everybody have a great night.
Awesome. Thanks, Molly.
Bye, guys.